Shighadi Mwakio Karibu Sana is our guest this hour in the Situation Room. Deputy Registrar, Movable Property Security Rights, MPSR in Kenya. We've seen you before. We've had a conversation with you once, but you were somewhere in the cloud.
Yes.
Now we've landed things and you're here with us. You're in the hot seat this morning. Karibu Sana.
Asante nashukuru.
Thank you for joining us this morning. We're going to be, there are many fancy words in this conversation, so hopefully you can land this plane for us and make it as simple as possible. The use of movable property as collateral to access credit and drive business growth. So let's just pull all of this apart because it's clearly an important conversation to have. So that's what we'll be talking about with you this hour. But Shighadi, let's start from the very beginning. Movable property. What is movable property? Vehicle that can move?
Anything that moves is movable property. Attachments to a building. So what we are dealing with is the registration of the security rights in those movables, not the said property.
Okay.
Yes. So it is the security right.
Lovely stuff. What are security rights?
Okay.
So it's the right attached to, so you have a right to your phone, right?
I think.
Because it's mine, I bought it.
It's yours.
No, it's mine. But I'm saying I think.
So if it's yours,
Yes.
as long as you have a right to that property, then you have the right to it, okay?
Okay.
So as a lender, you can claim a right in that security where I give you loan and
Based
then on this asset that we have,
so long as it is mine.
so long as it is yours.
And that mineness is what you're calling the right.
The right. Yes.
Okay. So, as we are encouraging this conversation, what are we saying is the situation right now? Are people using the rights of their movable property to access credit? Or is it what we are now saying you can encourage people to do?
So the law came into force in 2017, May, and prior to that we had a previous law. We had the Chattels Transfers Act, we had the Pawnbrokers Act. The two were both repealed. And we had other laws that were still speaking into the secure transaction regime. They were amended. We had the Companies Act, we had the Stamp Duties Act, and a number of them. They were repealed to give effect to now this new, it's no longer new, it's the 2017 Act, the Movable Property Security Rights Act. So you do find that, so prior to that, we had the Chattels. It was, the registry was manual. So as a lender, you querying the registry, you can imagine with a manual.
It was an absolute nightmare.
Yes, and the agreements that we used to receive, trust me, there used to be a pickup that used to come with agreements.
Oh, wow.
Just to lodge they said the Chattels agreements. So with the capacity that we had, it was difficult to keep up. And so the Attorney General, in consultation with the National Treasury, we felt there's a need for us to move on with the current trends. There are different products that are coming up when you're talking about movables. And when you look at other countries, we were quite lagging behind because I'll tell you that even intellectual property is something that can be used in this registry. So what the registry does is, for a lender, you are just putting yourself out there and indicating to the public that I have a right over your laptop.
How?
So if you approach me with your laptop, and as I'm a lender, assuming I'm a lender, as long as that laptop is yours, you're the owner. So you approach me, you tell me, I have this laptop, kindly give me, it's worth 50,000 or 40. Give me 40,000 and you will have it as a security. So when you put it out there as a lender, so the obligation of registration is upon the secured creditor.
That is
I'm the one, the secured credit, the lender.
Right.
I'm the one who has an interest in this property. So I need to put it out there so that in case you opt to go and seek loan using the same asset, then if I query the system, I will be able to know, should I agree to loan you now as the second secured creditor, then I should know that I will have a second priority when it comes to realization of, in case of default.
Yes, okay. Step by step.
Okay.
Do own a computer. You National Credit Bank.
Yes.
Okay. Ndu comes to you, wants to borrow, brings computer, you register it. There are legal documents that you sign to show that you now have a claim on that particular, okay,
Computer.
or you have a claim to the value of it. But Ndu goes back with her computer.
Yes.
Oh, I go back with
You
my
go
computer.
back with it.
Okay.
Yes, yes.
So I can see the glimmer in CT's eye. So he's asking, what stops me from taking said thing back to? Or is the assumption that every single possible lender is in the system?
No. That's where she was. I wanted to get there. I wanted to understand that.
Okay.
Because the possibility of me taking it to another lender is considered.
Yes.
How do you mitigate that?
That's why you register your security right in it, such that should you now, as the second lender, wish to use this phone, then you need to query the system to find out, has this asset been encumbered already?
Okay.
So in essence, we are trying to protect the rights of the lenders.
The lenders.
Yes.
Okay. So it is the prerogative is upon the owner of the asset to register the asset.
No.
We
are not remember I
So
said we are not registering rights.
Okay.
We are registering the security right, not the asset.
And
It's
the security right is
right.
attached to a value.
Yes.
Okay. See, I'm getting this thing before.
Okay. So let's just take a few steps back because I think there are quite a number of people here. So there are very many people across board, from my understanding, who are standing as lenders. Call them whatever you want to call them. Those who will take some form of security to offer you some funds, right? So when you bring this asset and say, it is upon this which I seek to get a loan, this is my security. You, as the person who is giving me the money, lodges this
You have an
asset
obligation to
to
do.
lodge the
And
asset.
then one thing I should mention is, as the secured credit, as the lender, once I have lodged, I have an obligation 10 days after I have lodged that application to send you a notice to notify you, the owner of the asset. Remember, a borrower might not be the owner of
The asset.
the asset.
Okay.
Could be using your sister's car. So I'm required to send a notice to your sister indicating that I am using your asset as a security.
How far wide reaching is the registry of lenders to ensure that, so even if I have registered this asset, I have come to seek a loan, and this asset then has been registered, that anybody else that I may go to in the future is also under the registry, and then now they would be able to be privy to this information?
So this is an electronic registry. Anyone, even you can search that registry. So anyone, even if it's really not between an institution and a borrower or an individual or a company. It could be just the two of us, you and I.
You mentioned movable property. Okay? Now, if I understand something very fundamental about limited liability companies in the days when I was involved in forming them, creating them for purposes of profit. The purpose, realized or not, is not a subject of discussion, but that was the purpose.
It's okay.
I remember being informed by a lawyer that according to the law, in such a situation, the company was treated like a person. Okay? And because of that characteristics, when money was lent, it was lent to, I would argue, this person.
The company, yeah.
Good. We're in agreement. Do I want you to follow this one?
I'm following.
I am the most movable property I know.
You.
Yes.
Okay.
If I have intellectual property rights, it's nestled in me. If I have a qualification, it's nestled, that's intellectual property rights. Ability, it is nestled in me. Now, one of the requirements when you get a loan, at least I've been led to believe this whenever I've gone acquired a loan, was they looked at my track record. Track record is me. Now, there are parts of this globe where they don't want any fixed asset or movable asset. Your track record is adequate for you to receive or to be lent money. Now, we see it with Fuliza. Look at your track record. What's the other one called?
Shwari.
Yes, okay. We see it. How regularly do banks actually practice this?
So from our end,
Yes, that is. It's from your end that I'm
when you do Fuliza, you are not touching the right to any movable assets, right? So that is not within our ambit.
You know why I'm calling it a movable asset? Remember, I said I made it a story. Me. My track record is me. It is my reputation. Is it not? That isn't movable.
As a lender, no, and I'll put you on the spot, because as a lender,
Yes.
will your track record of Fuliza, will it give me the confidence of lending you?
It will or it will not. And then there's a partner called CRB who also comes in.
So I
Okay?
wanted to say,
Yes.
now, if as a lender, if you want to check my track records, then the right place to go to is the CRB. My default record. Have I defaulted? Have I ever defaulted?
Yes.
Yes.
Now, my beef here is that the theory behind it is sound, and I understand, and the lender must be protected. But in the absence of the two lending platforms that I have spoken of, I am told that you can be lent on something like a turnover. Let me explain why I am getting onto this. I'm talking about certain tools of business that I have experienced, I've come across, I've even used. A letter of credit, blah, 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 blah. But I am saying this. When you tweak the rules to meet present day requirements, okay, is there that part where you ensure that the lending institutions actually comply with these changes? Because I'm saying this because one gets the impression that the changes may be there, but the lending institutions simply stay exactly where they were before. They'll talk this talk, but they're exactly where they've always been because they don't see the need to change.
True, very true. And I'll speak about SACCOs.
Yes.
So we did, we a few weeks ago, we were just doing a tour of the various institutions. So we had various former provinces that we visited. And we found that the SACCOs are also adamant. They're still used to the traditional property that they are confident to use.
Like
to
bring your
lend.
whole house, bring your items, etc.
And the guarantors. The guarantors.
Yes.
So it's still something that they were quite rigid about. But when we explained how the systems work, so they're a bit warming into it. And from the statistics, we've seen the number of SACCOs, the uptake is coming up now. So what we've done is we have tried as much as possible to sensitize them, as well as the members of the Kenya Bankers Association, so that they can accommodate the individuals out there, be it individuals, the mama mbogas, and accept the use of movables to issue credit.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, there's also that feeling, you know how there's, we say that when you see something is there now when you have the confidence that this thing will actually produce, you know, the use for you. So now we're asking people to shift from a historical way of doing things whereby you have a shed that is full of people's property, and that kind of, it's money in the bank that should this person not pay it back, then you know, all right, maybe I can sell this off for something. So essentially what you're asking lenders to do is have a mind shift, that if this registry is there, you can see that this thing has been registered here. Are they legally bound by this registry? Because if I bring my asset, register it, you give me money and I go back with it, it gives people it could be an illusion that has been created in the minds of people that, all right, you've just given this person money and they've gone. What liability then do they have? So you're asking people to have kind of like a mind shift. How has it been so far? What are lenders, because there must be some kind of feedback.
Yes.
What are they saying, and are they comfortable with it? Because we must also realize that there are very many people heavily dependent on such lenders.
So yes, the uptake is quite positive, but of course they have their own challenges in that some of them are indicating they could have apportioned a particular a piece of land whereby now they are using, let's say, tea. So the bushes. So they've lent money using the security is now the bushes.
Okay.
So most of them are, you know, sometimes when we try to now get back our money, we find that the property was sold, the land was sold. So what do we do?
That's what I'm asking. Is this bound by law? And in such cases, what kind of mitigation measures do you then take to be able to resolve
So the beauty about the law, it has broadened the scope within which you can enforce when someone has defaulted. So as long as someone has defaulted, there is judicial and extrajudicial measures that you can take. But one thing we need to emphasize is you have to ensure that you have the same in your agreement. So it's upon you as the lender. You need to ensure that you cover yourself to the best of your ability to mitigate on the risks.
Okay.
You know, the government does its due diligence and due duty. And I like what you said about engaging SACCOs, banking associations. Now, do you get them to understand that this is knowledge they need to cascade to their members?
Yes, and we, as we do the training, our request to them is always kindly be our ambassadors, because they really, really need to know this. And one thing they did is they brought their members to the trainings. Yes, so that was the beauty of it.
Okay. So now, even as we're talking about using this, what is the encouragement that we're hearing? What is this message that we're hearing? And is your message then for lenders? What is it specifically, or those who are doing the borrowing?
So the message is for both lenders and borrowers. The lenders, they should feel confident to use this platform because their priority is known. Your security right is identified. In case of default, I have a right of priority. And for the borrowers, they need to understand that they can now use their movable assets, anything you can think of that moves. You can use that, approach a bank that is confident enough to use it. They can definitely issue you credit. Yes.
You know, one of the things I found with the SACCO method of guaranteeship and why I think they would stick to it, I actually support that method, and I'll explain why I support it. SACCO has many members. You lend to all these members. The people who work within that SACCO don't have the manpower and the muscle to follow up everybody. But those who guarantee you do. If there's a slight whiff of a default, all you need to do is talk to the guarantors and then tell the person, excuse me, go and pay.
Behave yourself.
But you see now, if, for example, I am a small person, I just joined the SACCO a few days ago, and I need credit, I don't know the people in the SACCO.
No, you
As
don't.
a SACCO, how will you assist me?
You'll get a self-guarantee.
My money is not enough to self-guarantee me.
Then you'll wait until it's enough.
That's why this platform is important, because now the SACCOs are encouraged to use whatever the individual has and not limit yourself to that guarantor relationship.
What would be the difference between what is currently happening? We have a mushrooming of all of these credit facilities doing this, that. What would be the difference between the current situation and essentially now what you're trying to steer people and businesses to do?
The difference is just they need to have a mind shift. Like I would say, particularly you'll find most of the institutions are confident with motor vehicles, for example. And what they do is they register jointly. Okay? So as a bank, I'll register as a co-owner. So once we do that, as a bank, you think you're safe and all that.
Yeah.
But should that motor vehicle get involved in an accident, what happens? You're both held liable because you're a joint owner. But when you register yourself in the in the registry, what the court will look at is, have you registered your right there? So you registered your right as a secured creditor, which means you are not a joint owner. So you will not be held liable. Yes.
That's a lovely subtle point, isn't it? Yeah, a get out of jail free card. Some of these things, wonderful as they are, unfortunately, if they're not understood by the people who are supposed to consume them, their wonderfulness is actually lost in space. Now, I have always been of this view, I still am, that banks are wonderful institutions, but they don't do enough to talk to their would-be customers or converse or have conversations in a way that the customers would understand them. The only time I saw that happening was the time when one Mr. Mwai Emilio Kibaki was president of this country, and he opened a space for personal loans. Okay? It was made possible in my mind because the country, the government wasn't borrowing directly from banks.
Right.
So banks had monies that they needed to lend. That's when I saw banks hawking loans, literally hawking. And they were experiencing, and many people benefited from this. Okay? That era seems to have gone away. We are now back to the era before then. Now, how do you get banks to understand that in this country, the largest portion of our population don't have bank accounts? You say that you've opened up this space so that one doesn't have to go to a financial institution of any sort. That this can even apply from person to person. Explain this.
So what it means is I could come to you, my laptop example, with my laptop. You give me 50,000. Remember, you need to ensure you, as the person who's given me this money, you secure your interest. So what do? The best thing is you register. And that is what we call third-party effectiveness, such that everyone out there should know that you have a right over this property. And like I was mentioning, the trend that we, from the statistics that we were able to pull from the system, there's this bracket called others that ranked the number one. So we can see that from the system.
Okay, in the system, what did you have before
so we
you got
had
to others?
We had banks, we had circles, and then all that the other institutions.
Okay, so those are others now.
Those are other. No, those are not others.
So who are others?
The others it could be individuals. Yes, others are outside, companies, entities, I'd say. So the others are mostly individuals. What we don't know is it could be even the Shylocks.
And what percentage, when you say it was a majority, in terms of percentage, what was it?
It was close to 70.
The others are 70% of everybody who is loaning or lending money.
And borrowing.
So they are issuing credit using now the movable assets. So those are the people who are probably not registered.
Wow.
Yes.
Okay. Now, these institutions, which I don't know, do we call them now, according to you, the legitimate institutions that are lending money, whether it be bank, SACCO, etc., etc., is there significant uptake then of them telling would-be customers that here is the option of using movable assets as collateral for credit? And are they also going in that direction, or are they sticking hard and fast to those which they are more comfortable with?
I'd say some are really taking it up. They are using. They're thinking outside the box. Anything that's movable, you can see from the system. They're actually utilizing the provisions of the law to ensure that they issue credit. But there's some, of course, who are rigid. If you don't have a car, I'm not giving you credit. If you don't have a property, land, I'm not giving you credit. So it's upon the secured creditor to feel confident. You see, taking a loan and issuing loan is not something that you can be forced. You have to feel confident as a lender that you can give someone credit using the site facility. So it's just a platform that we are ensuring that for the secured creditor, your rights are covered. Yes.
Okay. So now, even as you look at the patterns of lending in the country, what would be the preferred right now? We've seen in the last few months billions being borrowed by Platform X, billions being borrowed and then repaid, defaulters rising by a certain amount, etc., etc. So the appetite for borrowing is huge. The needs probably outweigh the appetite. So what would be the preferred?
So what we've seen is the uptake has been on household, then motor vehicles, and then we have furniture, and it goes all the way down. Yes, but how household are being ranked number one at the moment. Yes.
Okay. So as we are looking at now what the encouragement would be to get into the system to do this, I'm a bit concerned about these others that are 70%, because then we're looking at lending and borrowing. We've seen ugly situations, individuals and would-be lenders, maybe in the event of default, and things can actually get quite ugly, involving police, involving the law, etc. Wouldn't there need to be some kind of regulation even within this system where anybody can get into a system and say, I've registered this asset and, I've lent this money, and then I can take my own recourse if, in the event this individual defaults.
And that's why we have the registry, such that we should not have competing rights. Let our rights be clearly distinguished in the registry. That's why I said, as a bank, as a lender, I should be confident enough to query the system to find out, has this asset been encumbered, to avoid a situation whereby we are fighting over a property that I gave you the loan first, but because you did not register, this second person who registered will be given a priority. So that's why we are encouraging people to use the system, query it as much as possible before you loan, before you issue credit, just to ensure you have your priorities right. Yes, to avoid the risks and the fights that you're talking about.
What other challenges are you seeing coming out before then, now this was encouraged? Apart from the double, the double collateral kind of thing, what other challenges were you seeing that then fueled this decision to encourage people to register?
Way back. So other than the system, I said it being a manual system, we had also the delays that I've talked about. So with this registry, because it's an online registry, it's quite encouraging. So the aspect of financial exclusion, way back then, it was quite limited. And then the hire purchase had its own registry. So it was just all over.
Now, tell me, are you saying, therefore, that this whole process that we're talking about can be done online?
It's an online end-to-end. And what I should say is, as a registrar, I cannot do anything on my end. So what you key in...
That's it.
That's it. We don't verify the information. That's why we put the obligation on the person who is keying in the information. What they need to remember is, if you key in a wrong information, there was a court case, and they ended up losing millions because someone keyed in wrong information, and they ended up being ranked second instead of first. In terms of so we have the identifier being either the company's registration number, the individual's ID. There are two sets. So you either use the company's registration number, the ID of an individual, or use the motor vehicle chassis number. So if you happen to key in a wrong identifier, remember you are not identifying that person to that particular. If you use a wrong ID, well, the good thing about ID, we query the system, the IPRS, so it's quite difficult for you to miss on that. But if it's a circle, if you key in a wrong number, then it means the property is attached to someone who is not there.
How then do you verify that, say, for instance, the title deed number or the registration number of the vehicle belongs to the person who is actually getting this facility?
So the onus of verifying and
not
with the registrar, it's with the secured creditor. Remember, if you're the one who is issuing the loan, you need to conduct your due diligence to ensure that what you're giving, you're securing with, is something legit.
So in essence, what you're actually saying right now is that when it comes to, say, for instance, the certification that proves the validity of a certain commodity or a certain item, that you don't even need the actual, say, you don't need a title. You just need the details of the title.
We don't even need the agreements that you have. Before we used to agree to take up the agreement. So with this registry, we don't need. It's my colleague usually refers to it as a library, where when you walk into a library, the information that you want to find and is there, you'll find it there.
If it's not there, you won't find it.
You won't find it. That's why we're encouraging people who have not registered, register.
So is the encouragement to use the assets that you have to procure credit, or is it to have your... Okay, so I guess as you do that, you would be registered. And why is that? Because we've seen that other ways then of borrowing money have failed. So are you encouraging people to use the assets that they have
Absolutely.
to get as collateral?
Yes.
Now, there's that encouragement, but is it as a result of something else having failed, that they have tried other means, it has not worked out, that they are not able to approach any other lending institution and they give them credit based on 1, 2, 3? So here you're saying, if you've tried and you've failed, you have assets around you, doesn't matter where you are, it doesn't matter what it is, use those to be able to procure credit. Is it because there's a failure somewhere else that now this encouragement is coming about?
So prior to it, yes, I had indicated that with the previous law, the scope within which you could use to get credit was quite limited. So with this new law, we are encouraging the individual, the mamambogas. They could not walk into a bank. They could not walk into a microfinance and say, this is what I have. This is the car. I'll say, this is the car I have. Can I use it as security? It was a bit difficult. But now with this law, that the secured creditors are able to clearly demarcate their priority, then you see the fear that they had, not knowing if this property is encumbered or not, is no longer there.
Okay.
Now it's not a risky business per se. They query the system, they're able to tell that this property has not been encumbered. Then they feel confident enough to issue credit. So it's on both sides. We're encouraging the individuals who have their movable assets to use it to access credit, and for the secured creditors and the lenders, we're encouraging them to ensure that they register it, to ensure that they don't lose their priority rights.
Okay. And when we're looking at now, in terms of structure, of timing and things like that, I guess you're saying, so how long will this asset remain on this registry? Are we talking about the duration? So once I bring my whatever, tea bushes, and it's registered in the system, how long does it stay in the system? Or when I've paid off my loan, then we now come about and do this business where, all right, you can take it off?
So the system has 4 components. There's that search aspect that I talked about, where anyone can do the search. We have the initial notice, where I key in as the secured lender. I key in the information about the security and all that, all the details, the grantor, the secured obligation, and then my details. And then we have the amendment notice, where if I want a top up as a bank, I go to a bank, and then we have the cancellation notice. Now, the cancellation notice, once I have cleared my obligation, then the secured creditor is required to ensure they come back to the system and cancel that, such that if anyone else searches, then clearly they'll find out that the asset is not encumbered.
And what footprint remains in the registry? Is it yours as an individual or on that asset alone?
So it's tied to the individual.
Okay.
It's not tied to the, if it's only tied to the motor. We have 2 searches, I said. So the footprint is on the grantor, their identifier, be it the company's registration number, be it my ID number, and then we have the motor vehicle chassis number. So those are the footprints that will remain. About you as an individual, your details, if it's a company, how you have borrowed, and for the car, the same. Yes.
Okay.
You know, when you talk about opening up the financial space, man, this thing opens it wide. But then, if people don't know about it, I'm going back there again. But something of this sort, I don't think we need to worry. When people stand to benefit, they'll get to know about it. And word will go around. What are the safeguards? Okay. From your end, law.
It's in law.
You're the librarians. Custodians. That's all you do. They're custodians. Okay.
Yes.
So now, when we created this space in law, did we also create legal positions that would ensure that this system is not abused?
So abused from the point of the secured credit.
You people don't have a problem. You're the librarians.
Yes.
No. But from those who interact with the system. Yes.
The lenders, the borrowers.
Because if you open up that space, you open up many other things as well. So that's what I'm saying. So are there requisite laws that take into account these changes?
So what we have indicated is, before you key in this information, you need to get authorization from now, me, the owner of the asset. such that I don't just sit and dream of keying in details about your car and said I'm the secured creditor, you're the grantor. So you need to ensure that you have the authorization of that individual, and it has to be in writing.
So then you can be sure that
Yes.
you're not just doing anything random and unaffiliated. So it seems as if this is foolproof, and that you will not have any issues then when it came to now money that has been taken from individuals and such going forward. It would appear that way. So what kind of regulation then is available at this point? Lenders, borrowers, and institutions and others, what kind of regulation from the point of the registry is available right now to make sure that everybody is coloring within the lines and playing according to the rules?
Sorry, I didn't get you.
What kind of is there regulation right now and saying that these are certain rules that you must follow?
And
whether you're talking about institutions, whether you're talking, because remember you said 70% are others. It's your run of the mill, Joe on the street who could lend and put it in the registry. Are they regulated by an act? What?
Yes,
how
it's
does
the
this
movable
work?
property security rights. And the first thing about you using this platform is the first thing you need to ensure is you have to have an agreement. So we just can't sit and talk, and the agreement has to be in writing and in English. And it has to be executed definitely. So we need to ensure that we have that in place to begin with. And then now you go to register. But what I'll say about this registry again, something that will be interesting to you is you can register before you complete your agreement.
Sorry, what?
Okay, now I want to be walked through this registration. How do I register? Today, I want to register. What do I do? Is it a platform where I just sort of like
I log in somewhere?
and then I'm informed about everything else that I need to do?
So if you want information about it, you get it at brs.go.ke.
Slowly.
Okay. At brs.go.ke. brs.go.ke.
Yes.
.ke.
Okay.
Yes, you go to the Collateral registry. We have a user manual of how to navigate the system, and then we also have a user guide where we have outlined the silent features of the law. This is just to make it easy for individuals to understand how the law works.
Okay. You said you can complete before you register, or you can register before you complete. What were we looking at here?
So it allows, if we are in conversation, so the law allows you, remember it is first to register gets a priority. So we can have this conversation. And we are like, okay, fine. We are about to enter into an agreement. So as a prudent secured lender, what I'll do is I'll go register my right, even before we complete. But before I do that, remember there's that aspect I said about authorization. I need your authorization in writing that I know we've not concluded the agreement, but can I have your approval to register this on the registry, the MPSR registry? So once we've done that, if our agreement does not materialize, as the person who lodged that as the secured creditor, I'm required to go and cancel it because the agreement did not materialize.
And in the event that does not happen,
If it does not happen, then the grantor, the person who is lending, they're required now to tell the secured creditor, kindly cancel. If they don't, then they now approach the registrar and indicate this interest that has been lodged, but we didn't, the agreement did not materialize. Then from my end, I will ask the secured creditor. If they do not cancel, then I can cancel it from my end. Yes.
Okay. So from the people who are interacting with this system, even after now the law has been, changed and introduced, who are the most vibrant participants or interactors with this system?
Individuals. Individuals. So the people who, as the grantors, we as I had indicated, for grantors, we find that the individuals are using this platform quite a lot. Other than that, we have seen quite a huge number of the micro, medium, and women-led organizations using their assets that they have to secure credit.
And do you get feedback in terms of how this is working better or worse for them, whereby things before was just in an ad hoc manner, you could do whatever it is that you wanted? How have you gotten feedback that this is actually helping so that you run away from a situation whereby things are being introduced, people are using it, you don't know if it works or not, you don't know if people are interacting with it properly. Have you received feedback then in terms of, based on people's interactions, they are performing better in the business of borrowing and lending because of how they register?
So the campaigns that I've talked about that we had a few weeks ago, we got quite a positive feedback. But then again, other than that, of course, nothing is perfect. They want us to do some improvements here and there, which is something that we are working on as well. So it's we want to ensure that the registry is good for us, good for everyone, you know, and even the individual. So we will bring on board we have a consultant who is working on the comments that we have received, so that we ensure we review the system and have one that can accommodate everyone. Yes.
How will you know that this has succeeded? What would be your success markers in the and for over how long of a period of time where there've been interactions with the system would you then be able to judge that?
So ours will be if we are able to see an increase in access to credit. So that is something that we are really looking forward to. And as of now, we from the registry we are seeing quite an increase, which we are happy about. At least we can say that the system is working, because the beauty about it is once the secured creditors are confident that their rights are protected, then they can explore various assets that they can use to issue credit. Yes.
All right. Well, it's interesting that, you know, there is a platform upon which you can be protected and actually protect at the same time. Be interesting to see how this plays out. Shighadi Mwakio is the Deputy Registrar at the Movable Property Security Rights. We've been talking this morning about how you as an individual, you as a business can make sure your properties are registered in order for you to access credit. And the encouragement is to use these assets to be able to access credit, because you can. It would be good to see that more institutions actually pick this up if it's an option for people, because like we said, the borrowing appetite, the need is huge in the country at the moment. Thank you so much, Shighadi, for joining us this morning in Kenya's Biggest Conversation. Asante sana for sharing that with us today, and we hope you'll come again.
Thank you for having me.
Progress is always a good thing to be able to check up on and see where we are, especially with something as intimate as this,